In the tightly controlled world of military aviation, there are official rules, and then there are the unwritten ones. For nearly 70 years, the most important unwritten rule has been simple. America's most advanced military technology stays under American control. The Pentagon built an entire global defense network around that principle, tying Allied air forces to supply chains ultimately controlled from Washington. That control is reinforced through a complex system of export regulations known as ITAR, the International Traffic in Arms Regulations. In practice, ITAR acts like a leash, ensuring that no nation operating American military hardware can become fully independent from U.S. oversight. But what if that leash has finally been broken? What if a small Scandinavian country, known for decades of neutrality, quietly found a way around the system and is now preparing to export technology Washington spent generations trying to keep under its control? This isn't just a story about fighter jet engines. It's a story about how Sweden, working alongside British aerospace giant Rolls-Royce, may have triggered a technological rebellion with consequences reaching from Europe to India and even North America. At the center of it all is a fighter jet that was always designed to challenge convention, the Saab Gripen. To understand why this matters, you first have to understand the system being challenged. For decades, NATO and Allied air forces operated under a basic reality. Aircraft might carry the flags of Germany, Japan, or Canada, but the heart of the machine, the engine, almost always came from the United States. Companies like General Electric and Pratt & Whitney weren't simply defense contractors. They became extensions of American geopolitical power. Their engines powered the West's military aviation dominance. Take the General Electric F414, for example. It's one of the world's most respected fighter engines, powering aircraft like the U.S. Navy's FA-18 Super Hornet. It also powers the Saab Gripen E, Sweden's advanced 4.5 generation fighter jet, and that has always been Sweden's dilemma. The F414 gave the Gripen world-class performance, but it also placed the aircraft inside America's export control system. Because the engine is American, every Gripen export sale requires approval from Washington. Every deal effectively comes with an American veto. This has repeatedly complicated Sweden's efforts to sell the Gripen globally. Some potential buyers feared becoming vulnerable to future U.S. political pressure or sanctions. Others worried about depending on American approval for upgrades and maintenance. In many cases, the aircraft's capabilities were never the issue. The problem was that the Gripen was not truly sovereign. For years, the Pentagon tolerated this arrangement. The Gripen was respected, but as long as it depended on an American engine, Washington still held leverage. The aircraft remained tied to the U.S.-controlled system. What American strategists underestimated, however, was Sweden's long-standing philosophy of strategic independence. During the Cold War, Sweden built its defense doctrine around one core idea: survival through self-reliance. The country never wanted to merely operate fighter jets. It wanted the ability to defend itself without depending entirely on outside powers. Eventually, Swedish planners realized that true independence required breaking free from American propulsion technology. That search for independence led them toward Britain and Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce is globally famous for luxury cars, but in aerospace and defense, it is one of the world's most influential engine manufacturers, producing propulsion systems for military aircraft, naval vessels, and nuclear submarines. Most importantly, Rolls-Royce technology is British, not American, meaning it operates outside the ITAR system. That detail changes everything. For years, defense analysts speculated about the possibility of fitting the Gripen with a European-made engine. The obvious candidate was the Rolls-Royce-supported EJ200 engine used in the Eurofighter Typhoon. It offered strong performance, reliability, and, critically, freedom from U.S. export controls. But replacing a fighter engine is extraordinarily difficult. It requires redesigning the aircraft's fuselage, air intakes, software systems, cooling architecture, and aerodynamic balance. For a long time, the engineering and financial challenges seemed overwhelming. Washington likely assumed Sweden would never attempt it seriously. Behind the scenes, however, work quietly continued. Reports and industry rumors suggest studies exploring non-American engine options for the Gripen had been underway since at least 2020. Then, two major developments changed the equation. First, Rolls-Royce reportedly began exploring an advanced evolution of the EJ200 family optimized for the Gripen platform. In speculative defense circles, this conceptual engine became known as the EJ230. Unlike the original EJ200, the EJ230 was imagined as a more powerful and highly customized solution tailored specifically for Sweden's fighter. Reports suggested it could significantly outperform the Gripen's current F414 engine, while remaining completely free from American export restrictions. Suddenly, the idea of an ITAR-free Gripen no longer sounded impossible. The second move was even more subtle. In March 2025, GKN Aerospace, the company that inherited Sweden's historic Volvo Aero operations, announced upgrades for older Gripen engine systems. Publicly, it appeared to be a routine modernization effort for aging aircraft. Attention focused on the existing engines still linked to U.S. systems. But many analysts now believe that announcement may have served as a distraction, while more ambitious propulsion plans quietly advanced behind closed doors. Sweden's strategy was becoming clear: use Rolls-Royce technology to create an entirely new defense partnership model, one capable of bypassing the traditional American-controlled military ecosystem. And two countries immediately stood out as critical partners: India and Canada. India's interest was especially significant because the country has struggled for decades to develop indigenous fighter jet engines. The inability to produce a reliable high-performance engine became one of the biggest obstacles to India's ambitions as an aerospace power. That's why reports of an ITAR-free propulsion partnership immediately attracted attention in New Delhi. India is currently developing its own fifth-generation stealth fighter known as the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft, or AMCA, but the success of that program depends heavily on engine technology. For years, India negotiated with American, French, and British firms. General Electric proposed manufacturing the F414 engine in India with substantial technology transfer. But despite promises of local production, the most sensitive technologies, especially the hot core section, would still remain under American control. That meant India's strategic independence would always have limits. Rolls-Royce approached the issue differently. According to multiple reports, the British company proposed a far more ambitious partnership: complete co-development of a new engine with India, including full technology transfer and shared intellectual property ownership. This was a dramatically different offer. Instead of partial access, India would potentially gain genuine control over its future engine program. It could maintain, modify, upgrade, and export the technology without relying on American approval. Reports also indicated that Rolls-Royce CEO Tufan Erginbilgic held discussions with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi regarding deeper industrial cooperation. Rolls-Royce even described India as a future home market, signaling a long-term strategic relationship rather than a simple export deal. For the Pentagon, this represented a serious strategic concern. America's most powerful tool for controlling advanced military technology, ITAR, was effectively being bypassed by a British-led partnership offering something Washington rarely provides: true technological sovereignty. And the ripple effects didn't stop in Asia. They quickly spread to Canada. Canada has long balanced its own aerospace ambitions against its deep military integration with the United States. Historic projects like the Avro Aero became national symbols of lost independence after being canceled during the Cold War. Frustration with dependence on American defense systems has quietly grown in Ottawa for years, particularly around programs like the F-35, where costs and reliance on U.S.-controlled supply chains sparked political debate. Then, in March 2026, reports emerged about a major Canadian defense industrial initiative involving Rolls-Royce facilities in Montreal. The plan allegedly aimed to transform the site into a major hub for next-generation military engine production connected to the same engine family associated with the Gripen and the conceptual EJ-230. If realized, it would mean that advanced non-American fighter engines could soon be manufactured directly in North America, completely outside Washington's export control structure. The implications are enormous. The project reportedly includes large-scale technology transfer and the development of sovereign Canadian aerospace manufacturing capability. Some reports even suggest the engines are being optimized for extreme Arctic conditions, potentially giving them advantages in Canada's increasingly strategic northern territories. The Montreal facility is also reportedly linked to broader international defense programs like the Global Combat Air Program, GCAP, the sixth-generation fighter initiative involving Britain, Japan, and Italy. This would position Canada as a significant player inside a growing non-American aerospace ecosystem. For decades, the idea that a NATO country could manufacture advanced fighter engines in North America without U.S. control would have been nearly unthinkable. Now that possibility appears increasingly real, and that is why the Pentagon is paying attention. This is no longer just about one engine or one fighter aircraft. It represents a broader shift in the global defense industry. What began as Sweden's pursuit of greater independence may now be evolving into a new international coalition built around strategic autonomy. The Gripen became the proof of concept. It demonstrated that nations could potentially develop high-performance military systems outside the traditional American-controlled framework. That idea is spreading rapidly. First, it directly challenges the U.S. defense export model. The F-35 was marketed not simply as an aircraft, but as the centerpiece of a global military ecosystem. An ITAR-free Gripen, powered by European engines, would offer countries an entirely different proposition: advanced capability without political dependency. Second, it is helping create a new industrial alliance centered around Britain, Sweden, India, and Canada. Through Rolls-Royce partnerships and technology cooperation, these countries are gradually building an alternative aerospace network capable of developing and exporting advanced military systems independently. And third, it forces the Pentagon to confront a difficult reality. America's monopoly on allied military aviation may no longer be guaranteed. The concern in Washington is not necessarily that the Gripen would outperform the F-35 in combat. The deeper concern is that the Gripen challenges the entire foundation of American strategic influence. For decades, nations accepted that buying cutting-edge military technology meant sacrificing a degree of independence. Sweden's strategy suggests another path may now exist. That is the true significance of this emerging technology partnership. The real export is not just an engine, it is the idea of sovereignty itself. And in the 21st century, that may become one of the most powerful technologies in the world.